How do you keep innovating in a space as complex and fast-changing as business travel? Well, today I'm going to be joined by Robin Smith, CTO of TravelPerk. And we're going to explore how a platform can deliver both frictionless user experiences and enterprise-grade compliance. And with a 15-year career that took him from graduate engineer to CTO at Click Travel, and later through its acquisition at TravelPerk, Robin is going to offer a unique long view on how travel tech has evolved from web booking to mobile, then cloud, and now AI. And today we'll talk about what it means to build a platform that feels as intuitive as some of those best consumer apps that we've seen out there, from Booking.com to Expedia. And yes, predictably, AI will take centre stage too, but with a more practical edge than many of the stories you may have read or heard about. And he's also refreshingly honest on why human connection still matters, especially during travel disruptions, and why 31% of users still reach out for a phone when things go sideways. So what does it take to build a future-ready travel platform? And how do you and your business balance automation, trust, and usability and put it all into one seamless experience? And on that note, it's time for me to officially introduce you to Robin now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. Firstly, I guess, hi, Neil. Thank you for letting us join you today and have this discussion and speak to some of your listeners. I'm Robin. I am CTO at TravelPerk. We are a travel and expense platform that serves business customers around the world, and delivering on those services for that entire sector. I actually joined TravelPerk 4 years ago now. I think we're almost to the day from an acquisition from my previous company, which was Click Travel, based out of the UK, where I actually spent the previous 15 years of my career. So yeah, I've sort of one huge career from graduate engineer all the way through to CTO, and then, like I say, joining the TravelPerk team here today.
And one of the things I love doing on here is finding out more about a person's origin story, their career journey, and just looking at your journey here. So you've been with Click Travel since your grad days. You rose through the ranks to CTO before the acquisition. But What did that entire journey teach you about scaling technology in a high growth environment? And how's it shaped your approach at TravelPerk today? I feel there's got to be a big story and almost story arc there as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think I definitely appreciate it's not the normal career within engineering. There's obviously normally a lot more movement than that. And I end up having this conversation quite a lot with people, especially interviews, and people want to know about TravelPerk and that unique approach. And what I think it's given me, sort of staying in one place, is a perspective of all of the other change that happens in the industry. I think it's helped me be able to understand that things just don't stand still. What I mean is, when I started out, my first manager, my first mentor was always sort of built into me. Just make sure you take the time to step back and understand things, whether it's new technology, new developments, whether it's in the travel industry or even now when I'm looking at expense. It's really important to take that time to understand what changes. I think me not moving around as much as you would normally expect has really helped me to be able to see that, because there is so much change. I think that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Over these sort of 2 decades, we had the rise of web booking in travel originally, then sort of mobile booking took over as a sort of the key development. Cloud computing, that was the big topic last decade, and now we're sort of into AI. And I think this is what I'm trying to hit at, is it's really been interesting for me staying in one position, focusing really deeply on one problem, to be able to keep an eye on those technological movements and understand how I want to apply them to my business, to my career, to my development. I sort of say, don't assume that you know everything. Don't assume that what you've already done is going to get you to where you need to be next, and just continue to be curious more than anything else.
Yeah, 100%. And that pace of change continues to ramp up. I was speaking to a guy from Coinbase a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how, especially around travel, it's going towards agentic AI, where you can, they were looking at linking AI and blockchain, and you could give your agentic AI agent, go book this trip for me, and it would go off and do it for you without needing 14 different pages open or tabs open in your browser. It's just constantly moving, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the developments in the AI space are, almost astounding. I think if we'd had this conversation 2 years ago, we would have probably said, "Oh, it's an absolute pipe dream."
Yeah.
It's actually particular. So the AI development in particular, I think it's one of those ones where actually, if you talk to people in technology, they go, "Yeah, but it's been there for ages." Yeah. AI, machine learning, everything. It's not technically new, but the commoditization of it over the last 2 years has really helped it come on leaps and bounds, and allows us as sort of consumers of the technology at the level that we operate to go, well, actually now we can think about our problems, our experiences in completely different ways than we probably would have done, like I said, just 2 years ago.
Yeah, and you guys are moving at a phenomenal rate too. I mean, before you came on, I was reading that TravelPerk has made some pretty major acquisitions. From a technology perspective, what does it take to bring all of these platforms together without losing speed or indeed customer experience? What have you learned here?
So I think for us, the most important thing when we looked at any of these acquisitions, and I think I would give this advice to anybody out there looking at doing any type of acquisition, whether is not to just look at the dollars and to think about, well, actually, how do I expect this to work? One of the key considerations for us was, especially if I think about something like Amtrav and Click Travel, where I obviously came from originally, is you need to be thinking about, is this opportunity, did it have the same philosophy as us? Do they think about the problem in the same way? For us at TravelPerk, it's all about building a travel platform, solving the problem in sort of modern technological ways, developing APIs. Are you even thinking about how AI may adapt and influence your product in the future? And I think what we've really come to appreciate and really drives how we make these decisions is if you're not looking at opportunities that approach the problem in the same way as you, everything else after that point is going to be 10 times harder. So I think that is the real crux of the problem. When you're thinking about doing that, when you're thinking about how am I going to bring these platforms together, you need to think about it at the opportunity stage, when you're out there assessing the market and understanding what acquisitions you may or may not want to do. That is the point to look at technology, not after the deal is done and everybody needs to start scratching their heads.
And I'm curious, you've got the ear of businesses all around the world. What are they, if you take all those conversations that you're having right now, what are those specific needs for those mid-market companies, whether they be in Europe, the US, or wherever, all these people that you're building for? And how do those expectations differ from, traditional enterprise travel solutions?
Yeah, so I think this is the real interesting thing. It's a definite rise as all SaaS platforms and development have grown over the last few years. They all sort of bring the same sort of expectations. For us, we focus on the mid-market, the SME, and I think it's those people who are developing from the unmanaged aspect of business travel. They've come from what you can't argue with, phenomenal consumer grade experiences, but they obviously don't offer the policies, the administration, the visibility and the duty of care that businesses need as they move into that sort of mid-market sector. And that's the sort of demand on us. Please do not take away the consumer grade experience. Allow this to be a frictionless process, but, you know, bring the policies, the approvals, the integrations, like the expectation around integrating with more platforms, connecting to those extra systems that are, you know, on the rise exponentially around the world. That is where the big focus is, as opposed to the sort of traditional, very large enterprises who are a little bit sort of stuck in their ways, maybe even, you know, unable to adapt and adopt technology in the same way that the sort of the mid-market SME companies definitely are.
And I think right now everyone's talking about AI, particularly in travel. My son recently found himself in Miami for 48 hours, and he said rather than go to Google and get a page of sponsored results and just so much information to wade through that was irrelevant, he just went to ChatGPT and said, give me a 48-hour itinerary of things that I should see. Here's my age. These are the things that I'm interested in. Got everything that he needed there. So, but from your point of view and what you're seeing, what's the reality behind the hype of AI in travel, and where are you seeing AI actually making a meaningful impact today?
Yeah, so I think finding yourself in Miami for 48 hours, there are worse places to find yourself, but that sounds amazing. I think the key here is it's not hype. Yeah, so I get it, and I think that's why this story continues to unfold, and people are talking about it in this way. Is it is here. The technology is here. It's making impact. The key is it's got to make useful impact. We touched on it earlier. It's barely been 2 years. Yeah, the sort of AI and the commoditization of AI is beginning to make the sort of changes in all industry that it's having, which means it's relatively new. And I think this is why we're sort of on this sort of cusp between hype and transformation. Is there are a lot of experiments out there that maybe aren't proving real worth. For us at TravelPerk, we decided what we need to do is focus on it having some real impact. For me, I brought it in-house as fast as possible, which was, we want to empower everybody in our business to adopt AI in every part of what they do, as in that is where we can have the immediate impact. We've got experts who understand their role, their job, what they do. So giving them tools, which at its heart is what AI is, that allows them to become more efficient, to access data, to go and research a trip to Miami at the drop of a hat. That is what's key. We partnered up with a company in recent months called 9X, and they're working with us not to just bring AI to our R&D team, who we call builders, but bring it to everybody in the business. So everybody's fluent, everybody understands the technology. My goal is that everybody can become a builder. I think that's going to be the key difference for AI and automation now. Is it's no longer just the job of an engineer. It's something that everybody can start doing. It's sort of bringing technology to the masses, as it were. So I think we're focused heavily on what we can do internally whilst we continue to experiment. Well, what's that going to bring in terms of the user experience? Yokoi, we did that acquisition recently. AI fundamentally changed the way they process their expenses. No longer is it, I've got to sit here traipsing through an invoice every time that I need to claim an expense. It's automatic. It's there. I can process it. I can move forward. So I think there are great product direction and there's great internal enablement direction, and all of that is open to us now. But I think the key to take away from that is it's not hype. It's here and it really is making a difference.
And I've been to a lot of tech conferences this year around the world, and predictably, everyone's talking about agentic AI and agents. But another phrase that I keep hearing is, yes, AI is incredibly powerful right now, but we shouldn't underestimate the power of keeping the human in the loop. So, do you see a future where AI agents manage the entire travel booking process autonomously, or will human involvement always be necessary for trust, policy, personalization, etc.?
So I think you have to break that down into two sides. Technology, yes, it can absolutely do it. It's not quite there today, but we've seen the pace of development. It will absolutely be there soon, if not very soon. It's only going to get better. So I think from a technology perspective, if that's what people want and how people want to experience and interact with a platform, if they want to book their travel through an agentic AI and just have a conversation, absolutely. And we will be there to support that. I think the second part of it is more, as you just hinted at, the trust and the confidence and just the psychology behind it. We've had online booking for 20, 25 years. It's not a new technology, yet I can tell you that people still want to pick up a phone and talk to people. Yeah. Just because AI comes along, it doesn't mean that nobody's going to not want to pick up their phone and look at the pictures of the hotels that they might want to stay at. And then there's one element. There's always a strike, a weather disruption, something happening around the world. And what we find is when that happens, what people want immediately is a human touch. They want a confidence. They want the support. They want to feel like somebody really cares. There was some data release recently, like as soon as something happens, their plane's been delayed, or like you said, there's a strike or something happening, 31% of people will immediately pick up the phone. It doesn't matter how technically literate they are, they pick up their phone, they want to talk to someone. So yeah, I think it's those two camps. If the technology will absolutely be able to do it, but we've probably got a much longer period of adopting it and sort of the general psychology behind it sort of catching up with the technology.
And you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation the tech trends that we've seen throughout our careers, from it took PCs and offices, home broadband, mobile apps, cloud, all that kind of happened over a period of 25 years. But in the last 5 years, we've seen everyone working from home on a global scale, to the arrival of AI, now agentic AI, now quantum computing is waiting on the horizon as well. Yeah. So as SVP of technology, how do you build resilient, a future-ready platform when so much of the travel industry is still adjusting to those post-pandemic shifts, and also knowing that the speed of change and how quickly things will get outdated? It must be quite a challenge for you.
Yeah, so I think, well, as I hinted at the start, I think the important thing when you're just approaching any problem is don't assume you've already got the solution. Yeah, you need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to adopt new technology. Like, I always go back to cloud technology as the example, because I think that's more proven to this point. Is developing a platform requires you to understand what changes are happening, and being able to adapt to that is going to be super important. Whether it's moving to the cloud, serverless technology, platforms as a service. We've been working on these platforms for a while, and actually I think the fact that technology existed, we were early adopters of that, has set us up really well for sort of the race back to high volume post pandemic. I think if you were trying to do this without that technology and without that support, the fact that we went, I was going to say back from 0 to 100, but in the travel industry we went from minus 100 back to 100. It was a complete shift from the pandemic to now. But we've also seen sort of again, a change in behavior. The decentralization of businesses means that we're seeing a lot more travel that needs to be coordinated collaboratively. One of the things we invested a lot in post-pandemic was understanding events. And I don't mean events like, oh, we're going to a meeting. I mean, collaboratively, we want to work on an event. We want to share that we're all going to a particular place. Let's understand that we're all on this same flight. We'll make sure that we check into the same hotel. So it's the post-pandemic view has been more, well, we're no longer sat next to each other. So how are we going to collaborate? And our focus has been, how does TravelPerk make that collaboration easier?
And something I always try and do on this podcast is give my guests an opportunity to bust a few myths or misconceptions that may or may not frustrate you. I'm sure there's a few out there, but what's something that people often misunderstand about building travel and expense software, especially when trying to innovate across multiple countries, continents, and all the regulations that come with that?
I suspect this is probably the answer that you would get from anybody in any tech industry around their own personal issues, is that people will misunderstand how complex it is. And that's because, TravelPerk, for example, our job is to make this feel as simple as possible. Yeah, we're here to take the complexity. You want to go from A to B, and we want to make that happen as seamless as possible. Our objective really is to get out of the way. Yeah, you want some travel, you want to get from A to B, you want to stop in a hotel. That sounds really simple. Yet, if you look at an airplane, you can go to the US, Asia, Pacific, Europe. An airplane looks the same. Yeah, we know what it looks like. It's a tin box full of seats and it goes from A to B. Yet as an industry, we've made it possible to book every single one of those seats 26 different ways with add-ons and Wi-Fi's and bags and flexibility. Every single touch point adds another dimension of complexity. And that's just booking. We haven't even talked about how we then help you during travel, how we get you from A to B, how we support you through disruptions, involuntary changes, when you just need to, pick a seat or add a bag. And that's just in the travel side. So I think, people see the straightforward consumer A to B booking experience that you get from these amazing platforms like Booking or Expedia, and think that is the story behind travel.
Yeah.
And the reality is making it that simple in the way that TravelPerk does, and then allowing companies to bring policies and approvals and duty of care and sustainability. How green is that product? In a straightforward and consumable way, is definitely not as easy as people first think.
And for people that are hearing about TravelPerk for the first time, how would you define it? Who are you serving? Who's using it? And who you're aiming your services at?
So I think our goal is to be able to help everyone. But, it is absolutely a business platform. So those sort of if you're currently working in a business and you're booking and you're claiming your expenses manually and it's completely unmanaged, TravelPerk's there for you. If you're an SME and you're growing, you need that rigor and compliance and duty of care. That's what TravelPerk is there for you. Or if you're mid-market, you're trying to consolidate, integrate your expense, your HR systems to make it simpler. That's what TravelPerk is there to do. So, those sectors, US, Europe, UK, and across all of these regions, across all of these markets, that's what we're there to focus on.
Fantastic. And we started the podcast today talking about your origin story, your unique career path. And as we come full circle, I'm going to ask you to look back at your career now. And What advice would you give to that aspiring engineer or product leader that's maybe listening to our conversation today, wants to follow a similar path to yours from graduate hire to tech leadership? Any advice or anything you've learned along the way?
So I generally give two pieces of advice. The first one is somewhat ironic, and that's don't listen too much to advice. In that I absolutely believe the only way to have a career is to build your own career. Don't chase somebody else's. Don't try and copy what somebody else does. I'm a big advocate of, the longevity, the tenure, and really getting invested in a problem and a space. But I would also be somewhat hypocritical if I said that works for everybody. Some people will get a lot out of moving and changing and finding the particular industry that they love, which leads me on to the second thing. The only thing that is important is you must be interested in the problem. Like engineers, product managers, designers, the absolute key thing is we're continuous learners. Yeah, all of us, that's what we crave. We like to learn something. We like to solve a problem. You get passionate about the problem. And I think if you're not interested in the problem, then you're going to struggle to build a career. You absolutely have to love the problem that you're solving. Everything else comes second.
Fantastic advice. I was reading an interview recently with, I think it was Bono's son, who's in a band called Inhaler, and his dad was trying to give him some advice of, no, you're doing that wrong. You need to be doing it this way. And his son was like, no, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. This is how it's done now. And I thought, if Bono's son can't take advice from Bono, there's no hope for any of us. Yeah, you've got to find your own way. You've got to be passionate about it, haven't you? I think that's the message. You can't just replicate what somebody else has done.
Absolutely.
And on that same musical theme, we do have a Spotify playlist here. I always ask my guests to leave a song that means something to them. We can add to that list. Guilty pleasures are allowed. We've got everything from Mozart to pirate metal on there. But what would you like to add and why?
So there's no deep meaning. There's no psychology behind it. I had to look through the playlist and I couldn't believe it wasn't already there. And it's like, for me, it's got to be Everlong by the Foo Fighters. This is probably one of the greatest songs ever written by one of the greatest bands that's ever performed. I've been blasting it out of my stereo for nearly 30 years, much to the annoyance of my children. So 100%. Foo Fighters every single time.
Man, I can't believe it's not on there either. I'm going to have that intro in my head all day now, that opening line. But for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more about TravelPerk, dig a little bit deeper on some of the topics we raised today, where would you like to point them?
Yeah, so, of course, you will all find us on LinkedIn. You can find myself, Robin Smith. You'll find TravelPerk on LinkedIn or Instagram. Or if you're interested in maybe popping over and maybe even joining the team, pop onto travelperk.com, take a look at our careers. We're always hiring, plenty of open opportunities in many hubs around the world. So, I'd love to hear from all of you.
Well, I always finish the podcast by saying technology works best when it brings people together. And I love what you're doing here, from building sites to boardrooms. You're just keeping companies moving forward in a way that's simpler and smarter. I love what you're doing here, and even had a chance to leave us with a killer tune as well. But more than anything, thanks for joining me today.
That's been brilliant. Thank you for having me.
So what does it take to lead through 2 decades of technological shifts while keeping a product relevant, reliable, and user-focused? I think Robin Smith's journey from Click Travel to TravelPerk has offered more than insight. It actually offered a blueprint for how tech leaders can adapt, simplify and scale without losing sight of that important user experience. And our conversation today made me realise that building travel platforms that feel effortless on the front end, the kind of things that we all are guilty of taking for granted, behind the scenes, it demands deep technical thinking on that back end. Whether it's navigating multi-market compliance, layering business requirements onto consumer-style interfaces, or integrating AI in meaningful, not performative ways. TravelPerk is tackling complexity head-on. And I think we also learned today that adoption isn't just about tools. It's actually about enabling everyone, from engineers, marketers, finance teams, enabling them all to use AI in ways that improve their own existing workflows. And that internal enablement, paired with smart acquisitions and forward-looking infrastructure choices, all of these things collectively position TravelPerk in a way that's ensuring that they're staying ahead of change, rather than merely reacting it or chasing it. So for me, the big takeaway: technology that empowers people inside and outside the organisation is what drives momentum. So whether you are scaling a product, redesigning your tech stack, or just trying to future-proof your strategy, ask yourself, what would your platforms look like if you started by designing for adaptability first? That's something for you to think about over the next 24 hours before I come back with another episode. But let me know as always. Remember, connect with me on LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes. Send me a quick DM. But that's it for today. So thank you for listening as always, and I'll speak with you all soon. Bye for now.